hello. Is it me you're looking for? Can you see it in my eyes? Can you see it in my smile? Am I what you ever wanted? Or did you just want a piece of pie? Who you gonna call when you know what I did last summer though? Me of course, Robotron. With another 10 movies or series that might be worth smashing it. Smash it hard. Or trash it, because it sucks and is not worth your time. Check it. Check me out. Ring a ding dong motherfucker. Let's go. Enough of this nonsense. Two very Italian brothers run a struggling restaurant. One of them wants to spice things up and placate the American tastes while the other wishes to remain faithful to true Italian recipes. Jealous of a competing restaurant they are promised to visit by a famous singer, and a big feast is held to save their restaurant and relationships. Big Night is one of these interesting culinary movies that's all about food and bringing people together. It vaguely gave me vibes of La Grande Bouffe, but with more humor and no sex. Movies like this are movies you just watch and smile at. The culinary world unites us all in some way, and it's always a pleasure to have this laid back, relaxed and mellow feel translated to a visual medium. If you have watched one foodie movie and liked it, be sure to check this out. If you have not, then do yourself a pleasure and sit at the table for the big night. Smash that. Michael, Big Explosions, Bay, the infamous director of explosions, Dutch angles, moving cameras, nonsensical plots, sweaty skin and style over substance, has done it again. 6. Underground brings us Ryan, America's favorite Reynolds, a billionaire who faked his own death to start up a mercenary group who takes down bad guys with explosions. Lots of explosions, and a 30-minute car chase that looks fake as fuck. Explosions, banter, stupid jokes, sexy women, upskirt shots without showing them panties, shooting, Reynolds' stupid face, sue me. It's all in this extremely long 2-hour movie with way too many flashbacks and a whole lot of nonsense. Watching this movie made me snooze a bit too much than I should, but you can't help but admire the way Michael Bay makes his movies. It's special, very special. Special like Benny trying to fit a whole bottle in his mouth with snot running down his face, but special nevertheless. 6. Underground isn't a good movie. It's not a good action film nor comedy, but saying you shouldn't watch this movie would be wrong too. You just have to see the insanity that is this movie. Not Nicolas Cage insanity. A different type of insanity. One with explosions, I guess. Drop that. Women in Cellblock 9 is a sexploitation film about a bunch of attractive women who get thrown into jail for no reason in particular, stripped down and abused by the captors. In typical 70s exploitation movies, there's not much to say about plot, but there's plenty of boobies being portrayed in this flick to keep you watching. Unless you don't like boobies. There of course is also a little torture, a smidge of rapage and plenty of other skin to be seen if you are into that stuff. Women in Cellblock 9 is a product from the era, and a lot like other sexploitation movies out there. This movie isn't for the easily offended, but if you are, you already know you shouldn't watch this. If you like smut, however, and lush boobies in all kinds of shapes and sizes, glowing naked damsels in distress rubbing, squealing and over-the-top villains, then this is a movie for you. If not, steer clear so people who are not like you can still enjoy this stuff in the future. Check that. Class of Nuke'em High is another Troma movie set in the world of Tromaville, where a nuclear plant wreaks havoc and turns the students of Troma High into a bunch of weird mutants. Well, they are already weird, seeing most of the female students are dressed in those lovely 80s bikinis and the males are a bunch of typical 80s male stereotypes. Like many Troma movies, the plot is over the top, comedic, often breaking the fourth wall, politically incorrect and, of course, sexy in a quite vulgar and nasty way. Movies like this aren't made anymore, and that is sad. They should be made again cause they are extremely fun besides not really having much going on for it. Class of Nuke'em High is a special breed of movie from a special breed of movie makers. If you like Toxic Avenger, be sure to watch this one. It's a little less gory but a wee bit more funny and definitely more sexy. Check that. The second installment to the highly anarchistic class of Nuke'em High continues the story of the students in Troma High as they face another nuclear meltdown. The dumb jock reporter of the high school who gets relentlessly mocked by other students faces off with the squirrels and other extravagant gangs in search for the perfect story to bring to his bombshell and cleavage showing editor, all while the fat principal with the squealy voice attempt to make a group of subhuman sex slaves that have a meltdown and turn into little nasty gremlin-like humps of goo. Oh, and did I mention that our main character Jock falls in love with one of AM class of Nuke'em High 2, in my opinion, finds its footing a little bit more and is a more enjoyable sequel than the first. There's more plot and comedy and more sexy 80s booty and boobies. Movies like this aren't for everyone, but if you are one of the people who enjoys politically incorrectness, freedom and some skin all wrapped into a smutty comedic heap of madness, then be sure to check it out. Check that. In the third installment of the Class of Nuke'em High series, we got back the Nuke'em High, where we continue from the second movie with an overly long and unnecessary rehash. After that is done, we learn that the son of the dumb jock from the previous film has fully grown in a couple of years. But, surprise, he has a twin, who just happens to be evil cause he was raised by evil people. The two duke it out and have not so sexy time with bikini babes on a couple of occasions and eventually are confronted with each other. Class of Nuke'em High 3 can be considered an unnecessary sequel and didn't really grab my attention. It was nice to see how the story progressed and how different it is from most movies, but this one is the weakest of the three. Maybe I wasn't into it at the moment. We'll see when we watch the two return to Nuke'em High movies that were made in the 2000s. Check that. Super ultra hyper miracle romantic Valkyrie Drive. Mermaid is an ecchi anime, Japanese animation, with an incredible plot and a hilarious result. In Valkyrie Drive, a young girl is sent to a prison island where she promptly encounters two busty girls forcing themselves on her. Being saved by another busty bombshell, she discovers the secret behind the virus that courses through her. In short, whenever the person she is compatible with touches her, whether it's the lush bouncy breasts, kissing or other areas, she turns into a weapon, a literal weapon to be wielded by her compatible, often more dominant, partner. During the series, plenty of attractive girls start fondling each other during and at the beginning of battles. Boobies bounce when they talk, boobies jiggle when they move, boobies reveal themselves whenever it's needed. Plenty of gratuitous sass and banty shots and a very diverse all-female cast bringing all that representation to the table. Don't get me wrong, this is not porno, and besides lush mammaries, which uncoincidentally also is the name of the main character, you don't see much. There's lots of lesbian love, girl power and wonderful women attraction. Some questionable, other flat-out rappage. The subtext in this series is amazing in my opinion. It has a lot of layers, so there's more to be found than just thick breasts pressing against each other. It's nicely animated and interesting, but more so extremely comedic and fun. And fun is something we shouldn't frown upon. Nor boobies are broken bar. Boobies are great. Long live boobies. Not man boobies. Thor for broken bar. Well, to each their own. Just watch this. They're not called fun bags for no reason. Smash that. 15 years ago we witnessed the end of The Sopranos, one of the best mobster series ever created, featuring Tony Soprano, a mobster from New Jersey in dire need of a psychiatrist, and his happy band of Italian mobsters. Now, anno 2021, we get a prequel that promises us the story of how Tony Soprano came to be, who made Tony Soprano. And what do we get? A story on the racial divides of the 60s and 70s, featuring a black runner of numbers employed by Dickie Moltisanti, Christopher Moltisanti father, and his life as a two-timing husband and train wreck. In the first half we see Tony Soprano being a quiet kid for a couple of minutes, and in the second half we see teenager Tony Soprano pretty much being a doofus. But the rest of the story revolves around Dickie and his extremely boring escapades. To call this a gangster movie would not bring credit to all the excellent gangster movies of the past century. to link this to The Sopranos is quite the stretch. Besides the characters we know and love from the excellent HBO show that pretty much launched a golden era of television, there's nothing much that makes this into a Sopranos movie. There's just too little Tony Soprano to make this worth the watch. In fact, I got bored before the half of the movie because it was the old tiresome racial bullshit that has been in every single series and movies the past few years. Many Saints of Newark is a major disappointment and should have been at least a love letter to the fans like the movie sequel to Deadwood was a couple of years ago. But alas, agenda is more important than what came before. If you really want to watch racial divides and gangsters, do yourself a favor and watch The Godfather of Harlem instead. At least that show is interesting, fairly neutral, and doesn't take mere fragments from a better written, better made show to make a tired point few people still want or need to hear. Check that. Nighthawks is a 1981 movie where a very young Sylvester Stallone and Billy Dee Williams face off with none other than Ruth Gehauer, who plays a terrorist intent on wreaking havoc on the inhabitants of New York City. He didn't expect two hard-boiled nighttime cops to have the determination and rage to rid their streets of all the filth. However, Nighthawks was a movie that I never heard of before I happened to see it pass by. It starts off promising, but it loses me quickly as it feels a bit underwhelming, especially seeing the star power that is acting in this. Of course, this movie comes a year before Stallone took the role of Rambo, which grounded him as an action star despite already having two successful movies as Rocky. Nighthawks isn't as gritty and dirty as other cop movies in the 80s, and the action in it is fairly realistic in comparison to other movies, which makes this movie feel more like an episode of a generic cop show instead of a movie with the one and only Sylvester Stallone and Ruth Gehauer. Check that. St. Maud is yet another psychological thriller/horror in the same vein of Hereditary and others, about a devout and religious nurse who helps out a rich woman that is on her deathbed, when all of a sudden strange things happen around her and the relationship with the patient becomes muddled. Things get ugly. St. Maud is a slow film that spends most of the time peeling away the layers on the character of Maud. She is, to say the least, a strange character even when surrounded by extravagant people like her patient. It's very hard to tell where the story is going during the first half, but when it ramps up about a third from the end, things go a little bit faster. St. Maud was an interesting movie that balances the paranormal and the real world quite interestingly. Unfortunately, it takes a little bit too long to get started, which will cause many people to drop off. This movie isn't pure horror, but if you have patience and can forgive the creators of this movie a little bit, you will have a profound experience after watching this. It isn't a Hereditary, The Ritual, or The Witch, but it's close. Smash that. And thus concludes another episode of Smash TeeVee. I hope you found some interesting movies and series to watch so we can finally stop giving attention to all those awful movies and series that have been put on streaming services the past couple of years. I'll see you next time, and if this doesn't get enough views by then, I might change the formula. Who knows? Is anybody still here listening to this? If you are, thank you, trooper. You're one of the cool people. Cool people rule.